Hi there, it's June the 14th, and we're continuing our journey through the book of the Acts of the Apostles, written by Luke, and we're in chapter 9, and we're reading from verses 25 through to verse 43. So here we have three particular episodes. We're completing the story of Paul, of Saul's conversion, in a sense. Saul is brought to Jerusalem, and he tries to meet the apostles there, or the disciples, but they, of course, are all terrified of him because they know that he's been appointed by the leaders to persecute and to kill Christians. So they don't want anything to do with him. But one man whose name is Barnabas, we've already met him. His name's actually Joseph. He's a Levite, but he's called Barnabas, which means the son of encouragement. He sees the potential, he sees what God's doing, and he takes hold of Paul, and he presents him, and he describes how Paul has met him, he describes how Paul has taught. And he really gets on board with Paul and helps him to be received by the disciples in Jerusalem. And then Paul moves about freely in Jerusalem, but he attracts the opposition of the Greek-speaking Jews in particular, which indicates that perhaps he's ministering in Greek to try and reach those beyond Israel. And they try and kill him, and therefore the disciples realize they need to bring him to safety, so they take him to the coast and they put him on a boat to Tarsus, which is of course his hometown where he grew up. And Paul now goes out of the story for a little while until later. But then we move to the stories of Peter. There are two stories here of Peter. The first one is of Aeneas, a lame man who is living in Lydda. It is in the Greek, but Lod in modern-day Israel. It's about 10 miles inland from the coast. And here at Lod, Aeneas is lame, as I say, and Peter comes and says to him, Aeneas, Jesus Christ heals you. It's interesting the words he uses there, how he prays for people. He says, Jesus Christ heals you, get up and walk. And Aeneas is healed. And of course the fame of it goes around the place. But then there's another disciple, a woman this time, whose name is Dorcas, or Tabitha. Her name means gazelle. And she's there, and she's in Joppa. And as I say, Lydda is about 10 miles inland from Joppa, which is on the coast, in the suburbs of modern-day Tel Aviv. And so they hear that Peter is in Lod, they hear he's in Lydda, so they send for him. And because Tabitha has actually died. Now, this is this is another step. This is not just a healing, this is a resurrection. And so therefore the people are wanting Peter to come and pray over her. And as he comes in, the widows who she's ministered to show Peter her works, her sewing, the things she's made, the clothes, and they're crying. But Peter isn't put off by their grief, or rather he won't be put off by their grief. He puts them all out of the room. And then it's interesting, it says in the original Greek that he goes down on his knees. So here's an indication that kneeling was also acceptable, a way of praying. And Peter asks and prays and speaks to her to be raised from the dead. And Dorcas is raised again to life, and the news of it goes around the area, and many believe, so the number of disciples grows again in Joppa. Amazing days these are. We see here the amazing move of God throughout this area at this time. It also says in the middle of this reading that there was a time of peace and growth for the disciples. Quite unusual in one sense in the early church, but there was a time of peace and growth. May we also experience that today. May we experience both peace and growth and see many more coming to faith in this amazing Jesus, Messiah of Israel. Have a very good June the 14th.